Hi Stu, another quick vlog. I've got all sorts to do and not enough time to do it, so we'll see how we go. Good budgie action in the video. First, I thought I'd show the standard of my notes. That was the notes I wrote this morning for Arms of an Angel. Terribly scruffy. Then chords. You were talking about chords. I seem to be stuck with F, but leaving the E string unfretted. So I like the way that hangs out there. I actually got told off by a mate once for doing that. That sounds wrong, he said. And then going over to A minor 7th, I believe, which I'm sure from the sound of that you use. Nice and lazy and easy to do. Talking of Arms of an Angel and country and western mode, so when I sing it through, obviously just to whatever comes to hand. So it's sometimes when my days are long and feeling incomplete, when I'm trapped inside my head and I can't speak, I don't know how to smile at you and say your name out loud, hold your hand and say that I'm so proud of you, 'cause this is whatever. So see, country and western every time. So what I want to do also today, I'll find it, as I said, I think in my email, I read a bit more of Catcher in the Rye, and it made me realise what change it brought about for me. And what it was the realisation that you could write in a conversational way. So in fact, it's written. This is written, you know, in the same language that you write your emails, and that was a huge surprise and delight to me that you could actually write without using $10 words as you have to at school. I think that's why I latched onto it, that it was just like a guy talking to you with no pretense, no sort of artsy-fartsy stuff. So I'll see what I can get done. We've only got about 5 minutes left to stay within the 10 minutes, so I won't be able to do all of it. So if you remember, the hero Holden Caulfield is being thrown out of school, and it's his last evening, it's winter, there's a game going on which he hasn't gone to, and he's just going off to say goodbye to one of his teachers, a history teacher called Spencer, who is an old guy. So here we go. As soon as I got it, oh, he wanted a goodbye, yeah. So I turned around and started running down the other side of the hill towards old Spencer's house. He didn't live on campus, he lived on Anthony Wayne Avenue. I ran all the way to the main gate, and then I waited a second till I got my breath. I have no wind, if you want to know the truth. I'm quite a heavy smoker, for one thing. That is, I used to be. They made me cut it out. Another thing, I grew 6.5 inches last year, and that's also how I practically got TB. I'll move this watch up here, and then I can see the time. And then I came out here for these goddamn checkups and stuff. I'm pretty healthy, though. Anyway, as soon as I got my breath back, I ran across Route 204. It was icy as hell, and I damn near fell down. I don't even know what I was running for. I guess I just felt like it. And after I got across the road, I felt like I was sort of disappearing. It was that kind of crazy afternoon, terrifically cold, and no sun, and nothing like that. And you felt like you were disappearing every time you crossed the road. Boy, I rang that doorbell fast when I got to old Spencer's house. I was really frozen. My ears were hurting and I could hardly move my fingers at all. Come on, I said, right out loud, almost. Somebody opened the door. Finally, old Mrs. Spencer opened it. They didn't have a maid or anything, and they always opened the door themselves. They didn't have too much dough. Holden, Mrs. Spencer said. How lovely to see you. Come in, dear. Are you frozen to death? think she was glad to see me. She liked me, at least I think she did. Boy, did I get in that house fast. How are you, Mrs. Spencer? I said. How's Mr. Spencer? Let me take your coat, dear, she said. She didn't hear me ask her how old Mr. Spencer was. She was sort of deaf. She hung up my coat in the hall closet, and I sort of brushed my hair back with my hand. I wear a crew cut quite frequently. I never have to comb it much. How have you been, Mrs. Spencer? I said again, only louder, so she'd hear me. I've been just fine, Holden. She closed the closet door. How have you been? The way she asked me, I knew right away old Spencer had told her that I'd been kicked out. Fine, I said. How's Mr. Spencer? Is he over his flu yet? Over it, Holden? He's behaving like a perfect... Well, I don't know what. He's in his room, dear. Go right through. And starts a new chapter. They each had their own room and all. They were both around 70 years old, or even more than that. They got a real big bang out of things, though, in a half-assed sort of way. I know that sounds mean to say, but I don't mean it mean. I just mean that I used to think about old Spencer quite a lot, and if you thought about him too much, you wondered what the heck he was still living for. I mean, he was all stooped over, and he had a terrible posture, and in class, whenever he dropped a piece of chalk at the blackboard, some guy in the front row always had to get up and pick it up and hand it back to him. Well, that's awful in my opinion. But if you thought about him just enough, and not too much, you could figure out that he wasn't doing too bad for himself. For instance, one Sunday, when some other guys and I were over there for hot chocolate, he showed us this old beat-up Navajo blanket that he'd bought off some Indian in Yellowstone Park. And you could tell old Spencer had got a big bang out of buying it. And that's what I mean. You take somebody old as hell, like old Spencer, and they can just get a big bang out of buying a blanket. His door was open, but I sort of knocked on it anyway, just to be polite. I could even see him too. He was sitting in a big leather chair, all wrapped up in that blanket. He looked over at me when I knocked. Who's that? He yelled. Caulfield? Come in, boy. He was always yelling outside of class. Got on your nerves sometimes. The minute I went in, I was sorry I'd come. He was reading the Atlantic Monthly, and there were pills and medicine all over the place. And everything smelled like Vicks nose drops. It's pretty depressing. I'm not too crazy about sick people anyway. And what made it even more depressing, old Spencer had on this very sad, tatty old bathrobe that he was probably born in or something. Well, I don't much like to see old guys in their pyjamas and bathrobes anyway. Their bumpy old chests are always showing. And their legs. Old guys' legs at beaches and places always look so white and unhairy. Hello, sir, I said. I got your note, thanks a lot. He'd written me this note, asked me to stop by and say goodbye before vacation started on account of I wasn't coming back. You didn't have to do that at all. I'd come over to say goodbye anyway. Have a seat there, boy, old Spencer said. He meant the bed. I sat down on it. How's your flu, sir? My boy, if I felt any better, I'd have to send for the doctor, old Spencer said. That knocked him out. He started chuckling like a madman. When he finally straightened himself out and he said, why aren't you down at the game? I thought this was the day of the big game. It is. I was. Only I just got back from New York with the fencing team, I said. Boy, his bed was like a rock.